The Good Place wouldn't be as enjoyable as it is without its wonderful music score. I'm Kevin Jacobsen, writer at Gold Derby, and I am here with the composer of that score, David Schwartz. So, David, I've seen a lot of people online actually say that the opening theme of The Good Place reminds them of music that they would hear in a little video game called The Sims. So I have to ask if that had any sort of influence over the opening theme or if it's all kind of a coincidence.
I have never heard it, as far as I know. I'm starting to get interested in video games now, but I haven't even still have yet to play one. So I had no idea. Now I'll have to listen to it, but it might disturb me. So.
Well, it's interesting because it has similar themes of like being an architect of this world, kind of similar themes of The Good Place. But yeah. So what was kind of the process, though, of figuring out the best tone to strike for that opening theme?
Well, the first thing is you need a Good Place shirt. This is a Good Place shirt. I just, changed from my grimy T-shirt, so, to a little bit better video shirt. And Good Place shirts are checked. I don't know why, but Mike Schur and all the people, you go in there, and I just started to notice, and I said, I need some check shirts to be part of this culture here. And, no other show has that. But I met them. The sort of feeling was they hadn't used music in their shows before. They even went as far as saying they weren't great fans of music in television. And, but, they felt that this universe needed music. And I felt it needed, a very unique sound and a consistent sound. Maybe very much the opposite of, Lady Dynamite and Arrested Development, where I had just come from, the last two shows I had been scoring then and still continue with Arrested, where Arrested has every kind of music in the universe times 10, and every kind of craziness and layered stuff has worked, where The Good Place, I felt it just needed a sound that was, of The Good Place. And when you heard it from another room, you felt like, oh, The Good Place is on. And I just, after the meeting and found out I was hired, which is not always the way it goes. It's usually auditioning. They actually just hired me, which is really, it was a vote of confidence. And I think it really inspired me. I still knew if I wrote crappy music, I'd be out the next day. But we had a little bit of time, and I just started feeding them ideas that I had for the initiation scene, where Michael tells everyone who had just come to The Good Place what it's about and explains it. And it was a really tough scene. I think we tried a lot of different approaches. I might have tried 10 myself. Interestingly, most of them were, nah, that's good, but it's not right, kind of thing. All those themes are now part of The Good Place themes, and they got used in other places, which is very nice. But we started, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. I think, well, we like this one a lot, but can it have this from the second one you made? And then just kept on playing it against that scene. At the same time, the scene was being cut and shortened, and finally we got to a place. And I think that one piece and some of the other themes I wrote before we even started the pilot, or as we were starting the pilot, became sort of the sound of The Good Place.
Oh, interesting.
Does that answer the question? It's a good question.
Yeah, pretty sufficiently. So you've been a composer on all 3 seasons now, and since we just ended season 3, I wanted to ask if there is a particular piece of music that you wrote in season 3 specifically that you're especially proud of.
Oh, well, season 3, and both season 2 and season 3, they brought me in early because they had big musical moments in a particular episode. And in season 2, it was the Restart Waltz, which, I'm thinking the whole time, I'm going like, yeah, this is pretty challenging, because they were playing, iconic pieces of music that were with giant orchestras, and say, can you do this, but just, make it us and better. And, as it always is the case. And I figured, like, yeah, I'm going to ask him for an orchestra at the end of this. And before I even got to that, Mike Schur said, oh, you might want an orchestra for this. I said, yes. And same sort of thing happened again. There's a giant action sequence in episode, is it 309, Scott? Yes, 309. Janet fights the demons. And it's a 3-minute super active fight scene. And, sort of like an old Western bar fight in a way. And so it's not as much like the rest of the show, but it starts out like Good Place music, and it goes to we had a 40-piece orchestra for it. So that's always exciting and fun. And you don't get to do it. I don't get to do it that often in television. but I love it. And we had a great orchestra and it went really well. And on that whole episode, wherever I could, I used the orchestra because I had them, you know, where normally I'd be working in my studio with a smaller chamber orchestra or a small group of strings and maybe a woodwind player and a guitarist and that kind of thing.
So you have some repeating themes throughout the series, but I wanted to know how the process works just in terms of your level of involvement week to week, episode by episode, just like what is the procedure on your part?
Well, everyone's very involved. You know, the editors spend a long time with each episode and they usually temp music in. After the first couple of episodes, everything they temped was my music, which people always make the assumption, oh, that's much easier because you can just, you know, copy your music. But I sometimes find that the more challenging of the two. You know, if they put a great piece in by Jerry Goldsmith or Thomas Newman or, you know, then I go like, well, I'm not going to copy that. But, you know, here's a way to go that's interesting that, you know, how can I make this into good place music? Whereas if they put my music in, it's a little harder because I've sort of done it there. Very often they're fighting to use the same theme again, even either change the theme or actually use it. Fighting is probably too strong a word, but they just fall in love with temp and that's it. And I'll very often say, yeah, I like the way that works there, or I don't think it's quite right. Can I try another one? And then, you know, as we get to it, they'll hopefully like the newer one better. But I come in every week with the music editor, Jason Newman, the two editors, you know, whoever's episode it is, Mike Scher and a couple of the producers, and we talk about first where music should go, and second what it should be, you know. And so it's a pretty detailed conversation. It doesn't take that long. And then Jason Newman, the music editor, will send me notes and they'll say, you know, start on this frame, end on this frame. And what I really like in the notes is, you know, the emotional words here, you know, whether it's let's, you know, let them know it's okay to have a little fun, them being the audience, or can, you know, we start to add tension here without, you know, giving away what's about to happen, or any, you know, combination of emotional or, you know, color thoughts. And there's usually not that much time in a turnaround, so I'm thinking about it on the drive back, and usually I hit the studio here and just start writing. And then, you know, there's a review process. So maybe even my second pass gets reviewed again, and then they'll have notes on that. And then I add musicians, hopefully, you know, well, it can happen earlier. Sometimes if it works out, I'll add the musicians before they hear my first pass. And sometimes I'm doing it right before we mix. And then I'm a big fan of being on the final dub stage with everybody who creates the show. I don't know if a lot of composers do, but I find it's like a really important step. It's the final step. It's how they're hearing your music when it goes into the show. If they're not liking a piece, you can see why and you can correct it for the next show. Or I can even make a suggestion here, let's use an alternate tune, or, you know, at the good place, everything's stemmed. And usually we play the stereo mix, but, you know, if it gets to one of those situations where something is messing with a sound effect or dialogue, then we can say, well, let's try it, you know, and lower the percussion stem here. So that gives us somewhat mixing abilities on the stage. And you know, we mix it Universal Blue Wave, and John and Bill are an incredible sound team. So, you know, I feel confident it's going to sound great when I get there. And then whatever adjustments we need to make, we make on the fly.
Wow, that's quite a process. So I think I read somewhere that you have kind of general themes for just about all of the main characters. Is that right?
I don't know if I think it that way. There's definitely Eleanor themes, and there's a love theme. Mm-hmm. I guess it's happened in a way. I don't usually say this is Chidi's theme and this is, but it does end up happening that way. And then sometimes in season 2 or 3, well, you know, somebody will cheat. You know, the editors will put it there. I go, yeah, but that we only played with Chidi before, and they go, yeah, well, we really like it here. So I think story and sometimes humor will, will be first before trying to keep the themes really accurate that way.
Gotcha.
Especially in comedies, because it's so much about timing and making it work. And sometimes an existing theme will work, and sometimes it won't. And sometimes they'll cut to existing music of mine, and that gives it a better chance of working, when they do that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of comedies, you are primarily kind of a composer for comedies these days. And I know actors often say, like, comedy is harder to pull off than drama. So would you say that's kind of the same thing for composing scores, as far as just making sure you strike the exact right tone without being too obvious or cloying or anything like that?
Yes and no. I think comedies are a lot more fun because you're laughing all the time. And when you're doing, really dark dramas, which I also have done, and so I don't want to be known only as the comedy guy, just like actors. We want to be able to work in all genres and film and television, all that stuff. But if I have to work a whole scary movie or a whole scary TV show, and I've done a number, you're working there, it's getting to be nighttime, you spook yourself out a little bit, but that's fun too. I like variety, and I like to work on good material. So if it's a good dark drama with lots of tension, that's great. And I like when The Good Place has both. We really write a lot of tension music in that. And did I answer the question? I for me, maybe comedies come on the natural side. I just like it, and you tend to be working with very funny people, so that's really fun. Not that everyone in a drama is not fun.
Right.
People tend to have a good sense of humor in general, in my experience.
This is true. Since we're an awards website, I have to ask you about some of your awards history. You got 3 Emmy nominations, which you received for writing the main theme for Deadwood, the main theme for Wolf Lake, and the score for Arrested Development, and a Grammy nomination for Northern Exposure. Excuse me. Right. So do you have any kind of favorite award show moments over the years that are especially special to you?
Well, I keep on losing to people named Newman, Thomas and Randy, and you couldn't have better people to lose to, so that's great. And then once someone, I don't know if I should tell this story, but the person who told me this is no longer with us. And he was a very great guy who I really liked, and he was on the board, and I was coming into the Grammys when I had the Deadwood theme. And he said, "I shouldn't tell you this, but you won." And now I got really nervous because I didn't think I had a chance to win. I think that was the one that Randy Newman won for, I can't remember what it was for. But so I just didn't think I was, I love the Deadwood theme. I know it meant a lot to people, but I didn't think I had a chance. Maybe I always think that way. But now someone told me I won, and perspiration starts and dry mouth and all that stuff. And I didn't. I've never won. I've been nominated. I'm happy for all those nominations. Sure, it would be great to have one win or many wins. So that's my story. The time someone told me I won and I didn't. Someone who would have known that too.
Wow.
So I don't know what happened. I have to figure it was a really honest mistake because I knew the person pretty well, and he was a great guy. Other stories. The first time the Grammy nomination, and it's better now, but people should tell people in that situation that you're not going to get food for maybe 11 hours, and you're going to be dressed in a tuxedo. You're not going to go out and find the nearest Starbucks. And so I think someone had told my wife, and she stuffed a muffin in her bag. And when we brought it out in the lobby, like, people were aggressively trying to get part of this, mediocre muffin. And they didn't that year, this was quite a while ago, they had a full bar free that you could go to at any time during the awards, but there was no water. So, you can figure out where the direction where all that goes. But they were fun. The Grammys in those days, there was a daytime Grammys. I don't know how it works now, but so you were there for like 4 or 5 hours, and then you just got moved right into the main show. I don't even know if you go to the main show now if you're in a category that's not.
Yeah, they're kind of separate now.
Right. And the Emmys, it's a separate week now.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was a really long day without food. I need food. I'm not that composer who can skip meals. I got to eat all the time.
Well, you're also writing the music for the final season of VEEP, and from what I understand, you didn't necessarily have involvement in the show from the previous 6 seasons. So what was
no involvement? I was
right.
a surprise.
Okay. So what was the process of just joining a show in its final season?
really fun, but I had a good bit of trepidation about it. I was asked by a Good Place producer who works on both shows, Morgan Sackett, and he said, "Hey, would you do me a favor?" I said, "Sure," before even knowing this. "Well, it's this TV show." I said, "Of course." That doesn't sound like a favor. It sounds like a favor to me. And then he says, "VEEP." I said, "That's really a favor to me. That's great, you know." And but the directive from the showrunner and from everyone up top was they wanted the music to pretty much stay sounding like VEEP, which I get. You know, why would you change an iconic sound in that time? So, you know, I still tried to add whatever it is that is me to it. And I think that just sort of happens in a natural way. And what I tried to think of is writers who come on to shows in the third year, script writers, or even writers who come on the first year. You know, if you're in a writing room with Mike Schur or Mitch Hurwitz, it's their vision and you have to write in their style. You may get your own episode to take back with you and work on, but you have to write in the tone of that show. And the tone is often established when they come on. So I said, if they can do that, that's how I'm going to just try to frame it in my mind. And that really helped. That took some of the pressure off. And then, you know, once I had finished one episode, or even once I had played the music for one episode, we were all pretty much on the same page. And it was then, you know, just it's still challenging because it's a great show and you want it to be great. And it uses music in a very unique way. It has a lot of short cues where you have to go full energy for, you know, 8 to 30 seconds. But for most episodes of the 7, you know, the last season that I wrote, I also wrote an end title, which sort of helped. It helped with the whole palette and everything because that was a minute to a minute and a half. And you could just sort of let go and write a thing. Still, most of that minute or minute and a half is at the top energy. You know, if we're between 1 and 10, everything was between 10 and 11. So, you know, there wasn't a lot of low energy segments to writing to beat. And it was just such a great season and such a great show. And I had a great time with the people. So all good.
Well, since we have a little bit of time left, I also wanted to know, since so many people kind of enjoy the musical score of The Good Place, if there's been any discussion to like release music from the show as some sort of album.
I've just thought of it in my own head, and just there's just so much stuff we haven't. It's been a wonderfully busy couple of years. So just those 3 shows and a movie and a couple of other things coming by and record work. So it's been all a lot to be grateful for. I would love to do it. I'm going to go make a phone call about that right now.
Excellent. Glad I could be the inspiration a little bit.
Yeah, good idea. I think it would be good. There was one night, and they asked me to do this. There was a night, I think it was a year ago, where they had an event on the Universal on our set, which I had never been to, and they were going to have this big party, and I think a lot of people were invited from the industry. And they said, "Can you make a 1.5-hour loop of music from The Good Place?" And then I said, "Yeah." And then I said, "Okay, you know, can I bring my wife?" And they said, "Oh, there's not even a ticket for you." But they did come through and got me tickets for both of us. And they were serving, you know, food, clam chowder and yogurt everywhere and Good Place food. And it was like the show came to life. And, you know, it's a little bit distracting when your music is being played, you know, piped through the whole village. But it was fun too. And I was very proud of it. So it was a really fun evening.
Great. Well, thank you so much, David, and good luck at this year's Emmys. For everyone else, please hit subscribe for more great awards season interviews and go to goldderby.com and make some predictions of your own.